Welcome to the White Knuckling It podcast with Justin Burke.
No, we got out of the life with the pre-roll.
And Mitchell O'Brien.
It was in his butt.
They share their experiences from white knuckling sobriety to becoming successful and living life in recovery.
Yeah, boy.
Welcome to the White Knuckling Podcast. Your host, Justin Burke, followed by...
Mitchell O'Brien.
What's up, man?
I hate you.
I know you do.
Nobody's going to know why, and I'm going to tell them.
Oh, we can tell. I'll bust my own self out. So I controlled the board for the podcasting, and before the intro, there's this little button called record you're supposed to hit, and somehow I just let it stay green instead of turning red to record.
I have 2 points that are to be fair.
What?
First one is, to be fair, this is the third podcast you've ever tried to record on your own board.
Second.
Well,
The first one was on yours.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
All right, so second. So that's even better. That's even a better to be fair, because you have 2 podcasts.
Yep.
And the second thing, to be fair, is the record button on my board is a square that's twice the size and lights up more than the record button on your board.
Yeah, it's like the size of a nickel, I would say.
And it's got like some black paint over part of it, so it doesn't glow as much.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit easier to see on mine. So I'm going to forgive you, but I'm still like sitting over here. I was already at like a 23 energy level. And I think it's actually might have brought it up a little bit, because now I'm like, oh, you son of a bitch.
No, that's good.
We talked about a lot of good stuff, like
We
where
did.
up north was and all that. I didn't even get all of that out.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Northern Michigan, anything north of US 10 is classified as Northern Michigan. And then we have the UP, which is even farther north.
Yeah.
But
And there was a Game of Thrones reference in there. And one thing I was going to tell you is that I used to, when I tried to, that year I tried to sell cars, which was a horrible mess right in the middle of my addiction. I met a guy who grew up in Detroit that I worked with. And
Okay.
we got on this topic. And he said that growing up in Detroit, because you said something about your friend considered anything 20, 30 miles north of Detroit was up north.
yeah,
That's not enough. I don't care who you are.
no, because Detroit's only like a 30-minute drive from the state border.
Yeah. So anyway, the what this guy was telling me is the Zilwaukee Bridge. And you know
Okay.
where that's at, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Just
And-
north of Saginaw.
Yeah. And I said, that's what a coincidence that you think that everything up north is past the Zilwaukee Bridge. I've always thought that everything south of the Zilwaukee Bridge was Detroit.
It kind of feels that way. You know, you go from Saginaw to Flint to just outside of Pontiac
Yeah.
to Detroit.
And it feels like Detroit's just slowly engulfed them. You know, you get a cornfield here and there, but
Not many.
no, it's just like every once in a while.
Right.
But no, what we ended up going into was kind of my past history and like,
Yeah, you brought that up with your addiction and car salesman. You want to dig into that at all?
yeah, re-dig into it, you mean? Because I
Yeah.
got halfway through the story on the first unrecorded. I'm just kidding. It wasn't halfway. But
No, it was kind of close.
anyway, because we talked a little bit about your back story, and I got to give a little bit of it that on the Recovery Dads podcast
Yeah.
that we were on. I got to give the part that's kind of like addiction and parenthood related. But I was going to get a little more personal with it here. So let's start back over. Why
Yeah.
not? We'll just start back over.
Yeah, why not?
I went from like a 23 energy level to like a 47.
Well, that's good because now you can have some excitement in your voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I if you can't tell, I can feel it already.
And I can see it. You're about jumping out of your chair.
It's raising. I think I'm at a 52 now.
Dang, bro. You better calm down.
Oh,
It's hot outside.
it is. It's getting hot in here. I think the furnace switched to 75.
You want to pause this to go check it?
No, no,
Good.
no, because you're not going to hit record when we come back.
Right.
Anyway, what I was saying, and I got kind of in depth with it, but I'm just gonna say I was really sheltered when I was really young. We had some rough stuff happen in my family, and my mom was very religious.
And so, in the fair sense of stating that, most really religious families homeschool their kids because they don't want them around all the other negativity of school life. Would that be fair to say?
I wouldn't say most, because there were a lot of homeschooled kids in the church that we went to, but our church that we went to was the second biggest Christian church in town that's not Catholic.
Okay.
And I'd say like maybe a third out of the families that had kids our age homeschooled. So there were a lot that were still in the public school or the Christian school.
Okay.
And them Christian school kids, dude, they were trouble. They were worse than the public school kids. They're always trying to get away with shit.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to start with the Catholic schools.
Well, they could just think they can repent to Mother Mary and be forgiven.
They don't care. Not when they're kids.
No.
But anyway, so I also mentioned about how if people have heard the term genetically predisposed. I'm getting tired. I'm starting to forget my terms.
Yeah, well, you say that, and I think a lot of people that struggle with addiction has a history of addiction in their family.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's a pretty fair thing to say. I know for me, I did. Both sides of my family, like it's there. I think a lot of it has to deal with just us being humans in general. Like, we'll all deal with different things, but when we look back in our family genetics or ancestry, like, we're going to see a lot of things pop up. That's why they say, what do you have a history of heart attacks when you go see the doctor, in your family?
Yeah.
And then they ask you, well, who had heart attacks, And you're like, well, this person, this person, this person. Okay, well, you smoke. You're already at risk of a heart attack. And now because all these people in your family have had heart attacks, your risk at heart attacks almost at a 90% now.
Yeah.
And I think that's a little crazy to say because, I mean, we're in charge of our own bodies, We make choices. I'm not saying that we all make good choices, but in the start, it was a choice. But that choice quickly turned into a longevity of this activity.
There's a spiritual podcast out there that talks about genetic curses, generational curses. And I personally feel like that genetic predisposition has a physical side, but also a spiritual side. And we're not going to really get into that here. That's for another podcast that maybe you'll let me plug someday. But for me, it was definitely multiple generations. My dad he had issues with multiple different kinds of substances, alcohol being one of them, which was the biggest one for me. Back in the party days when I was young, because that's how it started, is I get out of this sheltered life where I had to kind of grow up extra fast to help be the man of the house, kind of. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I moved out, I was 18 or 19. It was right around there.
So like right after you graduated high school then?
Yeah, pretty close. I want to say I was 19. I think it was 19, not 18. But I started experimenting a little bit when I was 18. Because I didn't drink it all until I was at least 18.
Wow.
And then I had some with some friends at different parties I
Were
went
you
to.
Amish? Like, did you miss the memo of the 16 little spree?
Sheltered. My mom had us at church 3 to 4 times a week.
Well, so do the Amish, but I mean,
Bro,
I forget the name of the...
Rumspringer.
Yeah, Rumspringer. You never got a Rumspringer?
You don't remember that from the thing we didn't record just a couple minutes ago?
No, that's what I was trying to get you to talk about it.
I'm going to give you shit about that.
It's fine.
I think
We all make mistakes. Accountability. See, I owned up to it as soon as we started the podcast.
It was for a good purpose. I think I'm at a 58 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was like Rumspringa, but instead of like a month or whatever they do, it was like 16 years. So I got out of that. But like literally, dude, like I was born on a Sunday, and my mom took me to church the following Sunday, and then every week until I was in my 19 years of life, it was 3 or 4 times a week at church, the same church, for the first almost 2 decades of my life.
Wow.
And
how'd that make you feel?
I mean, I was all about it back then. I'm not all about the church now, and not necessarily like everybody else, because I believe in God and that Jesus is my savior, and the spirituality stuff that I'm not going to get fully into, because I don't know if people come here for that. But it's changed a lot since then. But I was a good little Christian boy until all of a sudden I started meeting these bad eggs.
So would it be fair to say you were an altar boy?
No.
Oh.
No. My dad was, though. He's got trauma for that.
I was just asking. I didn't want to bring up
We didn't
any
have
past
altar boys.
trauma.
It was a Christian church, like not the Catholic kind of Christian.
Okay.
Yeah. But not like
So your priest was allowed to have a wife then in your church?
there weren't priests. We had pastors. And
Pastors?
they all had
Okay.
families with children.
That's good. Yeah, I like those kind of churches. They make you feel more at home.
Growing up, because it was called a Calvary church, which
Okay.
is like an army, and it was nothing like that. Calvary is like part of the army, so it's like whatever. Mm-hmm. I get it, like the army of God, but they didn't do anything like that. They always said it was like Baptist, but more boring, is what they said. So,
I'm sorry.
what? Give me this look. And I'm like, explain.
Because I've been to a lot of Baptist churches, and they're typically a little bit more on the fun side of church.
Yeah.
More down to earth. More like that at home feel, like you're connected with everybody in your church.
When I was a little kid,
you go fishing, you go do all kinds of fun things,
When I was a little kid, our church was across from East Bay, over by the Cherry Tree Inn. The building's not even there anymore. But we had an organ and a choir.
Wow.
And by the time I was a teenager, the church board or whatever it was, elders, had broken down the old people in the church and gotten a drum set. Like, that was wild. But they had to have like meetings because people would come there and lift their hands in the air while they prayed and worshiped.
Okay.
That's what we're talking about here. That's like, this is a pretty,
Pentecostal?
I mean, it's definitely Protestant.
Okay.
I don't know about Pentecostal, but Protestant for sure.
No speaking in tongues then.
No.
Okay.
No, that was probably of the devil, which
Okay.
I'm still kind of on that thought process now, but I know more about it. So, but anyway, definitely not. The most recent church that I went to was much more charismatic. Same beliefs, core beliefs,
Okay.
but more charismatic. So there are like the speaking in tongues and stuff like that. But I think that's a dangerous road to get down, and that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about that here.
Yeah.
We're not. I mean, we'll touch on spirituality and white knuckling it, but
Yeah.
overall, like we're here to like try to help people through white knuckling it.
If you want to hear that stuff, go to the Redacted Recovery Your Mind podcast.
Yeah.
We talk about that shit all the time.
Right.
That's basically what it's all about. But here, I got out of that super sheltered, super religious point of my life and got my own place to stay. And I was the house. Dude, it's 19 years old. Everybody's a minor because you had to be 21 to drink, or weed wasn't legal yet, but it wasn't, whatever. So if we ever wanted to party, we'd just be like, we got the house, you bring the stuff. And there was always somebody that would want to, always.
Well, of course.
If you called or text a friend, which was just becoming a thing, we had flip phones back then, so texting was just getting popular. I know you hate texting now. I hated it back then.
I still hate texting. From the time it was born to now, I still hate texting. I think it's the coward way to communicate with somebody.
Coward.
Yeah, because you don't necessarily have to ask them using your voice, You're like, oh, well, if they say no, what's the worst thing they could say? No, over a text message. Like, you don't have to hear the disappointment in their voice or nothing about their voice, to read like any type of thought that they're having when you're going to ask them a question.
Yeah, definitely narcissistic manipulation tactics can't be used in text messages very easily.
Right. I'm not saying I have any of those capabilities.
We all have those capabilities, Justin. But anyways, so I got hooked then. And the way that I saw it was, people would tell me back then, especially since most of the people I knew and like family and friends, other than these new friends that I was meeting that were partiers, was that, the party life was just I saw the party life as just a stage of life. Everybody I knew from where I worked and my new friends I was finding from out in the wild,
Right.
from being sheltered, were this way. You'd sneak some beers or smoke some weed, or somebody had a pill and whatever, and you just go and have fun, quote unquote fun. And so the people from my old life, the sheltered life, would say things like, act your age, and what are you doing? And I'm like, I am acting my age. Everybody else I know that's my age is doing all the same shit that I am right now.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is too. When we grew up, we had a lot of dumb, raunchy comedy movies.
Yeah.
Like Waiting. What was the frat boy movie? Van Wilder.
Yep.
We grew up with those type of movies. So this is what we grew up thinking is normal, Well, we party hard until we're like, 23 to 25?
Yeah.
And finally grow up? But that's what was portrayed to us.
And that's what I thought life was supposed to be when I got out in the world. Because I was like, oh, wow, there's a world that isn't the sheltered religious, section. And so I was like, okay, I understand. And I didn't watch any of those movies until this time because of how sheltered we are. That wasn't something that my parents were going to let in the house.
I'm sure you didn't watch that 70s show growing up, neither did you?
Not at all.
Wow.
Nope. No Simpsons. When I was a little kid, because I was the oldest, I didn't even get to watch the Ninja Turtles.
What?
Oh, yeah. My youngest brother got to watch whatever he wanted. It didn't matter. But anyway. So at my introduction to substances, because even though it was a problem in my family, the adults in my family kept it very secret from us kids, which I believe to this day is a mistake. If you have that in your family, those are very open conversations you should be having with your children so they can be warned. They can, it's just keeping it a secret, I think, is a bad thing.
Well, see, even in my case, my grandmother told me when I was like 17, you keep going down this road, because by then I was already partying for years, right?
Uh-huh.
Because I wasn't sheltered.
Yeah.
I was already partying for years. My grandma told me when I was like 17, it was like the end of my junior year, beginning of my senior year of high school. She's like, if you don't change your ways now, you're going to go down a very dark, lonely road in life.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to take a hold of you, and it'll take you forever to get out of it. And I was like, Grandma, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem, Graham. Like that's not me. Like, I can quit anytime. She's like, okay, just heed my warning.
Yeah.
If I would have listened to her then, to fast forward 33 years old, 32 years old, to finally realizing that old bat really knew what she was talking about.
See, nobody said that to me. They just said, get your shit together. You're not supposed to be doing this.
Right.
Figure it out. Be a man and all that. But, I mean, we skipped over some steps because in the beginning, it was just all about the party life. And then later on, it's like I can realize that it was all about the fun back then and how it made you feel and having fun with your friends. Well, after some life happened, had my son, his mom and I didn't have a great relationship. I felt like I needed to be in a relationship because that's what a man did in America, is you got the party phase out of the way, you found a job, you got a wife, you had a kid, and now I had a kid but no wife. I was like, so I'm supposed to find a wife so I can have this family, and that's just what I'm supposed to do. And anytime a relationship would fail, I would then just run right to the liquor or beer back then, but the alcohol, because that's what in a movie when a girlfriend or wife gives you divorce papers, what do? They go to the bar.
Yeah, let's have a shot or two, and then it spirals out of control typically for a month or two of that, and they show that, and they even write about it in songs. Like you listen to a lot of old country songs, like
Country songs.
Yeah, they talk a lot about, well, you're going through a breakup. Well, have a beer, it'll make you feel better. Have a shot, and it's like, why do you portray this on America that already has the #1 leading death cause of alcoholism?
It's like the people in charge want us to be slaves to something, but I'm not going to get into that. So,
no, it's very true.
It is, but I went from this like party fun phase to all of a sudden it being an escape. It was self-medication, and I didn't. This was the early 2000s. I wasn't in a part of the world where men were allowed to talk about their feelings yet. That wasn't a thing around here. Like you were just go be a man. Well, you're sad, get over it.
Yep.
And so I really did become a self-medication process. And one thing that I mentioned earlier was that I went from that fun stage to it being a dark self-medication stage. And I can't really pinpoint where that switch flipped. I can't even remember where it flipped. It's like one day it was the fun, and then one day it wasn't. And I can't even remember that day. It's really strange. It's like a really gray area. And that wasn't even the heaviest time of my use. I would go out of control when something stressful had happened in my life, like the custody battle for my son. That was difficult. And I would always escape with alcohol from there. Anytime a relationship would end, that was probably my biggest relapse thing. And I didn't even know what relapses were back then because I just thought I was doing what men did. Then eventually I'd clean it up a little bit and find a new woman to talk to and put all my self-worth in that basket. And then she'd leave. And then what am I supposed to do? So you just, drink your problems away. And each time it was getting worse and worse and worse. And those binges went longer and longer and longer.
Yeah,
and it took more and more alcohol every time. And then eventually I find myself 32 years old. I can't hold a job anymore. Like I had a little bit of a career moving through the automotive industry in one way or another. I went from working on cars to working in parts to be in management there. And I tried to sell cars at one point. And then it just kind of all went to hell after that. I went back to parts because I just didn't know what to do. And that's when the worst of the worst drinking kind of just started. And that was like 2016-ish.
Okay.
Roughly right around there. I was doing dumb shit like drinking at work and stuff like that. And I had never done that before. I didn't think anything of it. I was pretty good at not getting caught. There were people who were suspicious of it.
Right.
But I never actually got caught. But I ended up losing that job. And then I started just finding whatever kind of jobs I could. And I would still do this, try to get sober thing, and then, fall out and relapse and try to get sober and fall out and relapse. And at this point, I kind of realized that my life was a mess. I was falling into this pit of despair. I kind of moved away from that, trying to find a person thing, because as my drinking got worse, my physical health got way worse when my mental health went with it. So eventually, I find myself not being able to hold a job. COVID comes around. I weigh almost 500 pounds. I can barely get out of bed. And somehow I'm still getting to the liquor store to get my fix, and I'm about to die with heart failure. I am basically the only parent in my son's life, trying to hold on to some kind of relationship with him, doing it terribly. And I had to do something. I really did. Funny enough, my depression had gotten so bad because of all the drinking and stuff that a woman coming into my life and giving a shit about me again is really what helped me get a grip on it. She had me get into a program. That relationship ended up not working out, and there's always be mixed emotions there. Because I wasn't great in that relationship. She wasn't great in that relationship. But without it, I never would have gotten clean and sober like I am today. So that's just an interesting, weird thing.
Well, she just kind of gave you that nudge. Either you're going to do this or otherwise I'm walking out the door.
Right.
And then at that point, it turned into you actually wanting it. You wanted the help. Where otherwise you would have been like, deuces.
Well, I didn't have any value in myself. No self-worth. I had tried to commit suicide twice at this point. And because I just figured everybody else would be better off without me.
Okay.
It wasn't even necessarily, I mean, there was always that I don't want to be here situation, but I just saw myself as a burden on everybody. And I was. I really was. So I figured I'll just end it, and they won't have to deal with it anymore. They'll have to deal with getting rid of me. And then after that, they can heal. They won't have to deal with my shit. And both attempts were obviously, failed attempts. And I'm thankful for that today because I actually have value on my life today. It's taken 3.5 years, almost exactly, to get to that point. But I needed, and I didn't identify this before, but I see it now. I needed somebody to come into my life, show me I was worth something for me to take action. And then once I took action, I started to build up a recovery capital or a structure, and then I was able to take it over for myself. That's why a lot of people, especially in like 12-step groups, I hear a lot, but it's in other pathways too, where they'll say, for your recovery journey, you have to do it for yourself.
Right, you have to.
If you do it for anybody else, you're going to fail. It didn't work exactly like that for me. Now, moving towards the long term, it is, but I couldn't do it for myself. There was no way I could do it for myself in the beginning. I tried so many times and I failed. I had to do it for somebody else, and I had to stay alive for other people because I didn't want to be alive anymore. So I had to stay alive for other people. I had to stay sober for other people until I got through therapy deep enough to where I started to gain some self-worth back to where I could take it over for myself. So when people bring up that principle, I'm always like, I believe that, but I also think that in certain situations, just do it, or it's do it or don't do it. Like, it doesn't matter why you're trying to get sober or why you're trying to get better mental health. Just do it. Find any reason that you possibly can. Because in my personal experience, once you get a little bit of healing under your belt, you will be able to take it over for yourself. And then that principle becomes universally true. But before that, just grasp onto anything you can. Kind of like you're hanging off a cliff.
Yeah, but it's fair to say, though, too, that you wanted to quit and you just were so addicted, like you needed that nudge from somebody to say, either you're going to do this or otherwise you're going to hit even a harder bottom. And
I've had other people point that out too. But what people miss,
because if you didn't want to do it at all, it deep down inside, you would have relapsed after she left.
There was always this little, I have always had the visual of like there was this hurt little boy like hiding in the dark corner of my mind that had hope and that wanted to live and wanted to be sober and live a good life. And he had gotten so far from the light that it was like he was gone.
Right.
So I got to a point to where I was hopeless and I wanted to die and I needed somebody else to be able to do that. Now, I had gotten to the point where I had taken it over for myself and I had gotten self-worth and I had gotten, I was a year into my counseling sessions that really helped me before I was able to take my sobriety for myself and really value it. Like, this was a valuable thing that I possessed now that was mine.
Right.
But I don't know, man. Like, honestly, I don't know if that person didn't come into my life and give me a reason to live at that moment, if I'd be alive today. And it's hard because a lot of people, that's a hot take that a lot of people don't want to hear. But it's what I needed in the moment. And I feel, going back to the spirituality thing, I have a higher power. My higher power does everything. There's a purpose for absolutely everything. And that's why my story is a little bit different than how some people want it to be.
Right.
It works now. You know, I do it for myself. So I am saying that principle is universally truthful. But if you don't have anything that you can grab onto in your life at that moment, grab onto anything that you can, anything that anybody's willing. Because for me, it was a helping hand from another person. And I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to be a peer recovery coach, is because that's kind of what it is. Not the same way that it was for me. Peer recovery coaching was a serious part of the program I was in, and a really big part of the support that helped me stay clean for this amount of time.
Right.
But even if it's just somebody needs somebody to talk to, an encouraging word, a ride to treatment, like we do a lot, that's one of the reasons I do this, is because my sobriety, the beginnings of it, relied a lot on somebody else showing that I was worth giving a shit for, you know?
Yeah. Like even through mine, like I explained, you know, like I was locked up in the jail cell. If it wasn't for that CO actually willing to help me, like I probably wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
In that sense, you know. But you know, there's always people out there that's willing to help, but you still deep down inside, you wanted to be sober. You really wanted to be here. You didn't know how to do it.
Right.
You know, she was there to help guide you. You know, like even I said before, you know, in the last podcast, someone laid out stepping stones for me. Mm-hmm. It was my choice to walk those stones to get where I'm at today. You know, so you will meet people like that in recovery that's willing to help, but, you know, it's a choice that you have to make. You know, it's a dedication to live a life in recovery.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. You know, I had to do the things and had to go to the appointments and had to talk and had do the honesty and make sure that I saw my nurse for the Vivitrol shots that they took. Mm-hmm. You know, I had to do all of those things. But my message is, if you really do want it deep down, don't ever... If you feel like you're not worth anything, but somebody's trying to show you where they are, let them. It's kind of what I'm getting at. Like your CO, like my ex-girlfriend. You know, you don't know your CO anymore, I don't think.
She still works in the courthouse. I don't talk to her.
Right.
I know where she's at.
You know, the relationship that I'm talking about ended. We don't talk anymore. But those people, I feel, were both vital parts of our journey.
Yeah.
And gave us a stepping stone in seeing that we were worth it. Mm-hmm. And here we are now being that for other people.
Yeah.
You know?
And I believe everyone's got that person in their story. Like our boss, you know, like he had to go to a place, and I believe it was his peer recovery coach asked him, you know, what do you put above alcohol?
Yeah.
You know, what will it take for you to finally quit drinking? And he read off the cliche of things, you know. Well, when I get married, when I have kids, when I have this. He's like, hold up. You got a long bus ride. Really sit down and think about what you put above and what you want out of life.
Yeah.
You know, and look where he's at now. He's married. He's got a kid, 5 years sober.
Nonprofit.
Right.
Successful podcast.
Yeah, he's doing phenomenal things. Mm-hmm. But it was that person that actually put that little plant in his head, you know, and said, hey, what's it going to take for you to stay this way this time?
There's like little nudges.
Yeah, you know, and we all get them. And it may be from different people, but deep down inside, we all wanted to stop. You know, it's the people that we meet that say, "Oh, I'm doing this for my kid, so I get my kid back in my life." Okay, so you don't necessarily want to stop. I want my kid back in my life. I want these things back. You know, so there's never that heartfelt moment of, no, I'm doing this for myself so I can be there for my kid.
Yeah. I wanted the freedom because my health was so bad. Like, I came to a point to where I came to the realization that I was never going to be able to go to the UP and climb a mountain again.
Yeah, because you said you were, what, 150 pounds heavier than what you are now?
Over, yeah.
And I'm not trying to throw numbers out there or anything,
right.
but
You know, like I gave the number earlier. I was like 498 pounds is the highest I've ever weighed myself. That's a lot.
yeah.
And I had congestive heart failure, and I had many doctors go, "Wow, we didn't even think you'd still be alive. How are you not having a stroke?" You know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I came to the conclusion at one point that they all wanted me to lose weight and exercise, and I've got nerve damage too, which is a lot better today. But doing the things they wanted me to do were very difficult, very uncomfortable, very painful. I had to find a way to do them that worked for me, and eventually I did, and I'm so glad that I did, and it's been a pain in the ass, almost literally sometimes.
Well, it can be. I mean, anything in life is not easy. I don't care what you're looking at. It's not easy.
Yeah. No, but it's been worth it.
Right.
You know? And that's why I get afraid, and I don't lie to people, but some people will ask me like what it takes, or how long did it take you to do this, or how long did you deal with using dreams and stuff like that. How much effort does it take? And they're in very early stages of recovery.
I got almost 4.5 years clean, and I still have using dreams.
And they've kind of tapered off. I get them every once in a while, but I'm not even kidding. The first year and a half of my sobriety, it was almost nightly.
Yeah.
The nightmares were, and you know, my real root issue was depression and anxiety, unhealed trauma from when I was a kid. Some of the losses that I mentioned, stuff like that. I really had a mental health issue, and the symptom was manifesting as an addiction. I was self-medicating, and it grasped.
So that way we numb our brain.
Yeah. And so when I finally started to heal that stuff is when it started to get better. But once I removed that alcohol was like a dam holding back this river of depression and anxiety.
Right.
It hit me like a ton of bricks. Remove that substance as damming it, and that just was, the depression just bulldozed me.
Imagine doing that in jail where you can't even express it and you have to keep it bottled up as that dam's just bursting.
I understand how that would be more difficult, but the thing that hit me first were the suicidal ideologies, and I had guns. So in a way, it would have sucked more to be in jail, but it also was, you might have been somewhat safer because you didn't have as many options when those suicidal thoughts hit you.
Right.
Because you dealt with them too,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I had to convince myself that I loved my family, and even though I wanted to end it, I didn't want to have to make them clean my brains off of a wall. That's why I didn't do that back then. Which is harsh. Like, I can say that so easily, and people are going to be listening to this and be like, "What the fuck did you just say?" I feel,
Well, but it's cold hard facts, you know, and sometimes we look at that. You know, I used to think about that like when early 20s, you know, like, man, who cares? I don't got to clean them up afterwards. But those are our thought processes of white knuckling things, you know, of not working a program of therapy or anything in life, you know.
every time I tried to get sober, or what I would call it, get my shit together, I didn't know what recovery was. until this last time. I really didn't. I know there's a lot of people who we call we don't call them this, but I've heard the term frequent flyers who know the recovery world and relapse and get back in it and know it and it's almost like a cycle and it's how they survive almost. I'm not going to say anything good or bad about that right now. But for me, I didn't even know the word recovery before this last time I got sober was like physical recovery.
Yeah.
You know, your recovery was when you had a surgery and you needed to heal your body. I didn't know. So when somebody said there was a recovery program at my own doctor's office, I'm like, well, what are you talking about? And I thought it was like a physical therapy type thing, which I needed back then.
Right.
I needed that too. Never got it. I figured it out on my own, but you know, it was, and so I got into it. I learned what it was, got my peer recovery coach, got on the Vivitrol, which thank God, I know Vivitrol doesn't work for everybody the same. And some people I've heard it doesn't work for them at all.
Right.
It was a miracle in my life. It was a switch that turned my cravings off immediately. And it lasted the entire month that it was supposed to. And I still to this day thank God for that a lot, because I never had the power to fight those cravings back then. I was too emotionally weak.
Right.
You know? And to the point to where I was on that for a year and a half. I only got off of it not long before I met you guys.
Really?
It was a few months, but yeah. And it was rough. Like I was on there for a long time and trying to get off of it. It's like I didn't believe that I could be sober without it. I believed that the only reason I was sober was because I was still on it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And and I had some of my family support system that were kind of downers on it, because I talked to them about it one time and I was like, well, my therapist wants me to come off the Vivitrol shot. And they, you know, you got to remember, these are people who had seen the worst of the worst for the last 16 years.
Right.
Yeah, it was about 16 years. And so one of the people that were closest to me was like, do you think you can do that? Do you think you can do it without the shot? That doubt was like a Mike Tyson punch to the gut. It was bad. And my self-confidence just down. And so I went a couple months until my therapist was able to like talk me into it, because they believed I could. They kept telling me, we think you're ready. They're like, Mitchell, if there's anybody in this program that's ready, you are. Like, they said these things to me. And I just had that doubt from what my family said in the back of my head. So finally they convinced me to do it. And I really don't condone people lying to people, but I told my family that I was on that Vivitrol shot for 6 months before I actually told them that I was off of it, because I wanted measurable, tangible proof that I could be successful, because they didn't believe it. And I get that, because a year and a half against 16 years.
Well, yeah. Well, we say a lot of things, especially early on. You know, we say a lot of words like, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. And eventually it becomes a broken record, you know, where we actually have to put action first before we even speak the words.
Yep. That doubt that was put into my mind by my family member that said that, though, hit so hard that I was afraid to even say it to him, even after 6 months. But I told myself I was going to wait 6 months before I said anything. And then I came to them at 6 months and I was like, I'm not getting my Vivitrol shot this month. And they did the exact same thing. It kind of pissed me off. I had to remember that, you know, their healing and my healing were different, you know, the timelines. But I told them, you know, I'm not on it. And they said the exact same thing. It was, are you sure you can't? Like, what if you can't? Like, and all these doubts. And I got to look them in the face and say, I'm sorry that I lied to you, but I've been off of it for 6 months successfully, and I haven't used.
Right.
And they cried because they were so proud of that. And I look back on my journey right now, and 6 months doesn't feel like that long.
It is when you're sober.
Well, and it was when I was that early in it. You know, we're talking a year and a half, reaching, you know, getting closer to 2 years now. And to see that was a big deal for me. Because I had proof in front of me that said I could do this.
Yeah.
And all that doubt just like washed away. And that meant a lot to me, you know? So I'm going back down. I'm at like a 43.
Why are you at a 43 energy level? Is it your trauma roller coaster you're riding right now and it's like on a downward hill slide?
How long have you been recording?
46 minutes.
It's getting late. The sun's getting real low.
It did get a little dark in the office compared to shining directly in my eyes.
I'm
which
sweating.
Is nice.
I'm just sitting here. I think the AC got shut off.
I checked it before we came in here. It's still set for 69 degrees. Stop it.
Some would say that's the most fun degrees.
Some would say that.
Anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. I know there's more details here and there and stuff, but
we can dig in that in a different episode if you like.
I mean, I think there's the different aspects are going to come out because you didn't say everything in your story.
No.
Different aspects of our experience. That's the cool thing about being peer recovery coaches is, you know, this job is based on our lived experience.
Right.
And you don't hit everybody like, hi, I'm Mitchell. You know, here's my story from start to finish with absolutely every detail.
Right.
You know, you ease into it and you only share parts that are going to benefit them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that we're going to reach people, you know, people that we already know are going to get to know us more through this podcast, and we're going to hopefully help people. And I want to show people that there's been serious shit in both of our lives, but we're here today with multiple years of sobriety. Mm-hmm. And we're having fun.
Yeah.
We have stressful days, but we're having fun.
Yeah, there's stressful days. There's days I'm pissed off and at the world, but you know, at the end of the day, I remind myself, today was a good day.
Yeah.
And those are some of the worst days that I'm like, today was a good day. I didn't go out. I didn't use. I didn't drink. You know, there's all these things to be grateful for. You know, I still have my job. I still have my car. I still have my place to live. You know, and those are things that I can remind myself that I'm grateful for. Even if I am mad at the world, to bring me down to back to a center of gravity of life. Because even a good day using doesn't even compare to my worst day sober.
Yeah. Some sober people problems that get at us sometimes.
Right.
You know, and it's what I was thinking of, it just made me like brain hiccup there for a minute. But the cliche of, well, at least I didn't use today. And I've heard that in recovery meetings so many times, and it starts to like lose its luster a little bit when you hear it so often, but it's true.
Yeah, it's very true.
At the end of the day, I can say I didn't have to alter my mind to get through today.
Right.
I mean, unless you count nicotine. But
Well, you know, nicotine and caffeine are the only two addictions we're allowed to have.
we're allowed to have.
Yeah. I heard that from an old timer once. He goes, nicotine and caffeine is the only two addictions we're allowed to have anymore. Because everything else is no go. He goes, it ruins your life. It takes away everything you hold so close to your heart.
It's true.
And it is true.
I've never heard of somebody losing their house because they like Starbucks a lot.
Well, I mean, if you ain't making your mortgage payment because you're too busy spending it at a $10 coffee cup shop, you know.
I feel like there's more factors involved.
Right.
But no, I just that cliche is right though, because at the end of the day, like I didn't use. And there have been times like we help a lot of people in very, very early stages of recovery.
Yeah.
Like detoxing off of their substance stages.
Yeah, as we're bringing them to treatment.
Some people are positive experience, some of them are negative.
Right.
But there have been times where you see what those people are going through, and you look and you remember and you re-feel that because you've been there. You've felt what they're feeling.
And I've even my worst ride ever. Like I could honestly say to that person, like, I still try to reach out and help you even after what you did.
Yeah.
You know, and that does bring joy to my life, knowing that no matter how that person treated me, like, I still offered that helping hand. Whether if they want to take it or not, you know, it's like laying that stepping stone out. They have to walk that stone. You know, you can't force them. It's their choice. Yeah. But when they refuse it, you know, you're like, this is it. I'm washing my hands if this isn't the path you choose to take, because I can't do this anymore.
I get to look at that suffering and know that I'm a hand in helping that person. Mm-hmm. And then the selfish side of it is that I can look at that suffering and say, I don't have to do that anymore.
Right.
And the longer the longer I'm sober, it's a little bit easier. A little bit easier every day. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, we also got to remember why we're human. And that's why we still have therapists.
I didn't choose it.
What, having a therapist?
No, being human.
Oh.
I mean, some would argue that we do, but I don't know.
I didn't really choose it. I mean, I was born into this reality of being a human. If it was up to me, I think I'd rather be a flying squirrel.
I know cats seem to have it pretty good.
I think a flying squirrel. You get to glide through the air and, you know, be out in the woods all day and not really have to worry about much.
I don't think I like nuts enough.
Well, with your health issues, I mean, nuts and you just don't get along. Me, on the other hand, me and nuts get along great.
Now I'm going to turn that into a drop. I think I'm at a 32.
Wow.
I'm tired, dude.
The sun went down. It's still... You even going to finish doing your job tonight of publishing this?
Yeah.
Tonight?
That's what I'm saying.
Oh.
I mean, if you want. Well, it's so hot out there.
Well, we do have our event tomorrow, so we probably won't have time to work on it tomorrow. So
yeah,
we should probably do that.
Okay. It won't be hard.
Right.
People don't want to hear me yawning and shit.
All right. Well, we'll get out of here. Check in next week.
Yep. 217.
That's our appointment.
While we're at it, see, I told you I'm tired. Well, I'll plug 217 Recovery. You know, we get a little bit of support from Corey and everybody. We're in their building right now, so that's where we work. It's our employer, and you know, they have the 217 Recovery podcast. We do. I say they. We do. The 217 Recovery has a lot of resources. Check out the blogs on the website 217recovery.com. Their blog writers are top notch.
I've heard that.
They're us. But yeah. With that, I think I'm good, man.
All right. Later.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the White Knuckling It podcast. For more details on the show and for more episodes, log on to whiteknucklingit.com.